that, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Mr. Meraz Potoi. Sorry, I hope I'm saying your name properly. Who's dialing in from Samoa. Um, Meraz has a Master of Design in Innovation from Victoria University, Wellington, and is passionate about 3D printing and innovation through Pacific Studies and packaging kits. He is skilled in CAD software to create stunning 3D models in visual and physical forms which address design solutions. He is a talented freelance designer and is also an outreach coordinator who educates primary and college students through STEM subjects with specialization in technology, such as 3D printing and virtual reality. And his latest project is to develop a virtual museum showcasing Samoan history and culture. With that, the floor is yours, Meraz.
Thank you very much. My name is Mraz, has already been introduced as. I am in Samoa, the heart of Pacific. And I guess I will take you through a journey that we need to, and how I got here. First off, I did head to Victoria, did a Master's of Design, did a lot of 3D printing and other outreach programs. I was always really fascinated about trying to combine my Samoan culture with technology, as we are experiencing a massive digital boom. I thought that the Pacific should stay on par and move with it. So we made some 3D printed diabetic kits for young Māori and Pacifica students. And we went around trying to teach them about STEM subjects, that there is another pathway that we could take. And then after doing it for a few years, I thought, what better way to try and help my country but to move back home. And I moved back home. It's been 4 years now. I managed to score myself a gig at TV3 Samoa. And with that, I'm directing live sporting events, live talk shows, pre-recorded shows, OB replays. I look after the graphics and the commercial side of things within the TV. Worked on a lot of rugby, as you know, in the Pacific. Rugby's huge. Worked on a lot of the Meraz Sevens, Vodafone Sevens, and also the Pacific Games, which was a blast. From there, I kind of decided that maybe I should just branch off a little bit and go do my own thing, which I started my own little freelance business, which is called MP Studios, and specializing in everything design through commercials, music videos, short stories, social media content, and documentaries. I worked with a few of people that because of COVID, no one's able to film or travel. So they've been throwing out the jobs to indigenous filmmakers, which is a plus, I guess. I worked with Greenpeace, the British High Commission, and an American artist named Tanel. But that's not what I'm going to pitch to you guys today. So I was scrolling on, as you do, on social media, and there was an advert from a DP Immersive and ICDP, which was advertising about a VR training program in Samoa, which is pretty much the first of its kind. And it was like, we were like the guinea pigs, and I actually enjoyed it. I came up with, we had a task to try and see how we could use VR in a Pacific light. And for that, I was thinking maybe which has now landed us to a VR museum of Samoa. I was thinking about how could Samoa benefit from this? Of course, there's tourism that has really taken a hit. and could really benefit from VR or future travelers. But after researching a little bit, not too much, I found that Samoa lacks in this museum aspect. So this VR museum will try and present the world of first of a kind from the Pacific. We'll look into different aspects of the Samoan culture through architecture, art, artifacts, traditional voyaging, the diaspora population around the world, and also Samoan myths and legends. So this brought me back to when I was at uni, was to still try and create this cohesive blend between technology and my culture. And what better way to do it than a immersive platform that you can interact with every little object. So next slide, please, Dean. One more back then, please. No. Yep, that's the one. Thank you. Thanks, Ben. So we worked with a free software. It's called Styly, and the goal was to try and create this immersive platform that you could walk through, have a look through, and interact with initially. So if you have the app, you could scan the barcode, and you can just walk around with your phone. So in order to create such objects, we have to work with photogrammetry, which is a 3D scans of objects that is able to. So you take all these pictures around the object, and you try and get it as detailed as you can, and then we put it into a software, and then it creates a 3D rendered version of the object that you rendered. You can render up to, you can 3D render up to a whole house, some cars, a big boat. But we decided that we'll try out these. Those are our renders on the side, on the right. Yeah, the only one that kind of turned out really well was the cup, or the Samoanipu, because it was smaller. The other two looked a bit different, but so we thought about it. We're like looking at the scope of this. This would be massive to start a whole VR museum from scratch. Is going to be one big task. So I was talking to my buddy Dan, who's helping me on this, and we decided to narrow it down. Let's start with something smaller first, and then we can slowly build our museum. So our first phase that we've decided to go with is Pacific voyaging, which has to do with artisanal voyaging. Sorry. Why did we choose this? We chose Pacific voyaging because this traditional method is on a revival stampede. They are really trying to push and trying to make sure that they don't lose the connection with our people and the sea and the way that we traveled with the use of non-instrumental navigational tools by using, the stars and the sea, clouds, wave currents, and we believe that starting with Pacific voyaging, we can also assist their revival to try and to 3D scan these objects that they use for teachings, so that a younger generation of inspired navigators don't have to go out to the boat. As yet they can learn through VR, like a simulator, and they can learn all the tools, because it takes a big crew just to get the boat out. And so we decided, let's help out the Pacific voyaging, and plus it's abundant of resources in Samoa, as the one that you're seeing now, that's the Samoan boat, that's the Ngawalofa, and they are actively traveling around Samoa and just trying to educate young, inspiring sailors. So we're hoping to do a lot of 3D scans of those, but as you can see, the boat is huge, so we need a lot of detailed shots. Probably something that is some things that would get in the way for this VR museum that we're looking at is artifacts and scholars that are living abroad or just trying to get the right contact. Knowing who to reach out to is the main thing. Some artifacts have been misplaced or removed during German and New Zealand colonial rule. So maybe hooking up with a German museum and Te Papa is also, in New Zealand, is also pretty crucial. Some other things that might hinder our objects and stuff is private collectors around the world who might not know that they have something really valuable that they must stumble across. And also hardware, software, and documentation for the collection. If we can't get the right photos or the right quality of photos, it won't look as realistic as you would like it in a 3D rendered software. So we gotta have the best stuff for the best results. Probably one last final hindering aspect could be some people don't like to share their ideas or their experiences or their teachings that have been taught down from a generation to generation. I know some carvers in Samoa would not want to get an interview or be viewed because that's sacred to them and that's their own niche. Next slide. But I believe if we can hammer through all these barriers, I believe that it could bring massive innovations and learnings to Samoa. Right now, currently, the Samoa Museum is small, has a lot of potential, but it currently has over 600 objects and materials and audiovisual stuff. The only problem, though, is that its capacity can only accommodate for 50%. So if you want to look at something, you'll have to you have to see if the guy is willing to go and get it, or else you'll just have to imagine it. But if you have a VR museum, storage and the display will be endless. So the museum can also I know that most museums they pride on their work and artifacts. So like removing displayed objects is sometimes a big no, but that is the advantage of photogrammetry, is that we can go to the site, we can take lots of photos, and we can create this 3D aspect, this 3D model in a VR platform. So there's no need to transport anything or anything. There's no need to transport it from here to here. We will just go there, take photos, or if someone's good at taking photos, can go do it for us, and can send back the data, and then we put it into a 3D mode. The resources through this VR museum for Samoa is that it could be anyone is able to access it. You can access it from around the world. It's up to you where you want to see it. You can access it from your home, your work. You're sitting in traffic and you're like, oh, I just want to go have a little browse at what Samoan navigating looks like, or I look around. Just you can browse it from wherever you are. It is also great. This will also help with the preservation of materials, especially as a insurance type way. If something happens at our museum in Samoa, or we will have a digital form of it, which we can bring from there and make into actual molds, like how most museums do. And probably a big factor for me with this VR museum and how it could help us, help the Samoan people, is the diaspora population around the world. Most of them haven't been home. most of them don't know any Samoan words, and there's a lot of them who want to teach themselves and their kids about their roots and where they're from. And I believe that this will be a nice, cool, innovative, modern way of learning, as most kids now are stuck on their phones or their tablets or something. It'll be a great learning platform for especially the younger generations, because you don't want to learn. Like, I don't want to learn that. I'd rather go and play this or that. But then if you can make it interactive, where you can pick up the object in this VR space and you can look at it, it brings up a hologram and it says, this club was used to fight the Tongans or something like that. But so I reckon for learning, it'll immensely help our diaspora population abroad, and it'll give them a sense of pride and identity. And also for anyone else who's pretty keen on it. What's next? So we've been trying to hammer down what we're going to do for this. Of course, main thing, first things first, there's always funding. When you're always trying to push something out, there's always the funding up for the right hardware or software to use for this project. We've found a little niche that through NFT art, where it's a crypto-based platform where you could create these 3D models, and then people around the world are able to buy it. It would be actually pretty interesting if we could make it where it's an object that you can buy for like a Second Life world, where it'll become like a tool in your in whatever game that you're playing in, or yeah, it's like a little wanna tool. Some in-field research will be, I've already done some. I've looked around. I never knew Samoa had pyramids until a few years back, and I've been a lot of scholars around the world are pretty interested in how this is the largest. We have one of the largest pyramid structure in the Pacific. Well, one that's been discovered. I bet you there's a lot more around. It'd be great to get a actual 3D mold of it, and maybe retell the stories of what was used there. Speaking to high chiefs at the village, it's in the other island in Savai. They said it was used for ceremonial purposes. Not quite sure what. He didn't want to get into it. But there's also a giant's footprint, the Samoa's ancient star molds, which has also been recently discovered, and our Ngawalofa boat, which is traveling around the Pacific without any instruments but the stars. Also, we'll probably look around, try and establish local connections, try and look for potential experts around the region, and see how they're able to assist. Or a big one will be also to connect with other virtual reality museums. I know that the Louvre did one in 2019, and they recreated Mona Lisa, and you can literally walk up to Mona Lisa and walk around her. It cuts times off, especially when you have, what you call it? When there was no COVID, there was a huge queue, and you can only stay in front of Mona Lisa for a minute or so, and then you're off. So VR really presents a nice way of looking at it, and it's not 2D; it's a 3D Mona Lisa. Another museum is the National Museum of Finland. They've created a whole 3D a virtual space where they have all the old generals that used to fight in the wars. And our neighbor, Te Papa Museum in New Zealand, which will probably be the biggest one I would try and annoy, because they have most of our artifacts and most of the information that is there. And our last slide is just a little sneak peek of the app, and I touched based on 4 aspects of Samoan culture. It will be the sivafi, which is the fine art dancing, the tatau, the traditional tatau, which is Samoan tattoos, and for architecture, I looked into the fale, which is in Auckland, our traditional housing, and of course voyaging, Pacific voyaging. So this is kind of like, this is such a first phase, really early phase on what I kind of want it to look like. You can walk through this. So you put these goggles on, just imagine that. You put these goggles on and you walk through and you interacting with objects. You walk through one and the hologram pops up saying, you know, a little audio, Samoa voyaging was made, and all that. The housing architecture. And it's really that you can play with it just to look at a museum in a different way that most museums, you can't touch things. On this one, you can touch them all. So,
I hope you don't mind me jumping in there. I can just see some questions coming through for you that I think we'd love to ask you, Meraz and Florence. So are there any other closing thoughts, Meraz, that you wanted to add to that?
No, that is about it, I guess. Yeah.